Uh, Hi everyone, and welcome to Java Lesson 03. This is Tashuanchu, your host here, and I hope you are excited as I am to start with this lesson. Today we are going to learn about Java methods. So before getting started with the method, I just wanted to recap what we have learned in lesson 02. Uh, so Uh, in lesson 02, we have learned about variables. Now, Java is a class-based programming language, and inside the class, there are 5 elements. So I've already highlighted these things in the lesson 02 and lesson 01. The 5 statements or 5 elements which is inside the class. So the elements are number one is variables, then method, constructor, instance block, and static block. So we have in lesson two where we have learned about variables. So what is variables? So I just wanted to recap on the lesson two. So variables are nothing but they are the containers that holds a value. And there are 3 types of variables. They are local variables, instance variable, and static variable. Now, what is local variable? Local variables are those variables which is declared inside the method. And what instance variables are those variables which is declared inside the class but outside the method. And static variables are those variables which is similar to that of the instance variable, which is declared inside the class and outside the method with a static modifier. And I've also highlighted on the 2 areas of Java: static instance area and the static area. So I hope you have gone through, and I hope you have understood about these variables in lesson 02. So this is the second point, that is second element, that is methods. Now, what are methods in Java? Now, in Java, a method is a collection of statement, or it is a collection of statements that are grouped together to perform an operation. So just remember that it is a collection of statements or the elements which is grouped together to perform an operation, any kind of function. So it can be also defined as a block of code which can be run only when it is called. So let me show you. Now, a Java method is a collection of statements that are grouped together to perform an operation, and it can be also defined as a block of code which only runs when it is called, and you can pass data known as parameters into the method. So just understand the definition of the method. Now, what is the purpose of the method in Java? So you have to know the purpose. So before using the method, you have to know the purpose. The main purpose of the method is to write the logics of the application. The method mainly contains the logic of the application, how the application will work. So this is just the theoretical knowledge regarding the method, and I'm going to show you the practical after this presentation. So just remember that methods are used to write the logics of the application. Now, what are the types of method? Now, there are 2 types of method. There are instance method and static method. So how many types of variables? We have 3 types of variables. Similar to that, we have 2 types of methods: instance method and static methods. Now, what is instance method? Now, instance method are those methods which are linked with the object. Now, when you hear the word instance, always remember that it is linked with the object and assist the method using the object. An instance method, memory allocated during object creation. Just remember those points, that instance method is always linked with the object and assists the method using object. Now, what is static method? Now, static methods are methods that are linked with the class and assist the method using class. Now, when you hear the word static, always think of class. Now, static is always linked with the class because the static things are always loaded during the class loading after the compilation by the compiler, and static memory allocated during the class loading. So just so you have to remember these 2 points. So when you hear the word instance, always remember that it is linked with the object. And when you hear the word static, always think that it is linked with class. Now, so let me talk on the method syntax, syntax of the method. Now the method syntax begins with the modifier list. This is first it comes modifier list. What is modifier? It gives the permission, then comes return type. So what this method will give is the return type. So after execution of this method, the method name, it should return something. So there's return type, then it should come a method, the function, what it should do, the name of the method. Then it should contain, it should or may not contain parameter list here, and it should contain a throws exception handling, the error handling mechanism. So let me just give a real world example of this method for your better understanding of the syntax of the method. Let me just so let's say now let's say uh, we are applying for a driving license, for example. So I'm just going to give the real world example with the method. So let's say you're applying for a driving license and our function or the method is apply apply for driving license, apply GL. So this is the name of the method. Now when you apply for the driving license, first you should follow certain steps. First you have to go to RSTA, then you have to show your ID card, then you have to enter your give your mobile number, then your name. So these are ID proofs. And in method, so these are known as ID proofs, and these are in method, these are known as parameters. So let's say you give ID card, then your name. So these are ID proofs. So these are parameters in Java. Now, this is a function. Now, you are applying for a driving license with ID, name, and you can also enter, give your phone number. So after submitting this function or the application, then this method should return something. So what it will return is, you will, after submission of the ID proofs, you will get the license, that is driving license. You will get the driving license, and the driving license is the return type. So what this method will return is the driving license. Okay. Now, so this driving license will be valid if you are making the driving license, or if you are generating the driving license in Bhutan, it should valid only in Bhutan. If you are making the driving license from India, it should be valid only in India. So therefore, there should be a permission. So permission is a modifier list. That means it is a, like, it should be valid only in Bhutan. So this Bhutan is the modifier list. Now, so not everyone will get the license. So for instance, if one of the foreigner is applying for a driving license, then sometimes the driving license have to get rejected. So therefore, there should be error handling here. There comes throws 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 exception. So this is how we are handling the error. So if we just copy paste here, then so just remember this example. to understand the syntax of the method. So modifier list, it is a permission, so it should be valid only in Bhutan. Then there should be a return type. So what this method will return type, the example return type here is driving license. After applying for a driving license, you will get the driving license. So this is the return type from the method. Now this is the apply ID. Apply DL is a method name. This is a method name. Now the parameter list. So these parameter lists are the ID proofs that you have to, like you have to fill in the form, then you have to submit for getting a driving license. So these are the parameter lists, and for rejecting of your application and all, you need an error handling, that is throws exception. So that's all with the method syntax. I hope you have understood with this example the syntax of the method. So this is the syntax of the method. Now, based on, before getting started with the method example, I just wanted to recap on the two areas of Java. So to understand the following below examples, you have to understand these two areas of Java, that is instance area and the static area. So I hope you have understood and you have done a revision on the last lesson or two. So if you understand that two areas of Java, that is instance area and static area, you will be feel better or feel easy to understand those examples. So let me begin with the example. Uh, just let me remove this. Let's create one file here. Let's create one Java file. So now I just wanted to give you the practical on these Java methods. Method example programs. Example one. Now example one is without using the parameter. So I will write the code here. Without using the parameter. So let's declare one class. Always class stays. This is just the example. So without using parameter. So let's declare one method using without using parameter. Let's say our return type is void m1. Now you have seen in the method syntax, you have modifier. So you can either, this is optional, you can use modifier or not. It's okay to use modifiers or not to use modifiers. So just you will not use. If you're not using, then default modifier will be assigned. So void m1. So for this, this void is a return type, and for this return type, I'm going to give you a separate example. There is 5 to 6 cases after this example programs. So during that time, you will be understanding what is the return type and all. So for now, just we want to program without using the parameters. I'll highlight on these return types after this example. Now here we have a void m1, so we don't have a parameter. So let's just, this is just simple example, let's just print something. Print ln. the method 1. So we have declared the method here. We have return type, method name, and we don't have any parameter. This example is without using the parameter. Now, as I have already highlighted, so execution of the program always start from the main method. The JVM is only responsible for executing the main method. So therefore, we have to call this method for the execution. So this is a static area, and this is the instance method. Now you are trying to access the instance method to the static area. So when you access the instance to static area, you always have to do with the object reference. So let's create one object here. T just t dot m1. So this example is without using the parameters. Let's try to execute this code in local disk T cd java training and cd training. So let's try to compile this. Compile successfully. Let's try to execute. This is the method 1. The program is compiled and executed successfully. So this is the simple example without using the parameter. So let's see, this is the example 1, and let's keep it here for the reference. Now, I hope you understand this example without using argument or the parameter. So now comes example 2. Now example 2 is with parameter. Example with parameter. So let's do it here. So let's just, now this example is with parameter. So let's give some parameter here, int a, and let's say double d. So let's just keep this as it is. Let's just print this a and b here. Let's print d here. So here we are declaring a method with parameters. We have two parameters, that is int a and double d. Now we are trying to print those local variables, that is int a, the parameter values, that is int a and double d. Now execution always starts from main method. Now we have to call this m1 method into the main method. So this is instance method. Now we are trying to access into the static area. So we have to use with, you have to access with the help of object reference. So t dot m1. Now, so when you are calling, so you have two parameters here. You have declared two parameters, that is int a and double d. Now in Java, if you are declaring or giving parameters to the method, then you have to pass the value at the time of method calling. So therefore here we are trying to call the method m1. So at the time of method calling, we have to pass the values. So here we have int a. So therefore we have to pass the value as something like 10, 10, 10, comma, and we have double d. So we have a floating point number here, 10.5. So the point here is that the point you have to remember is The number of values passing when you are calling the method depends upon number of the parameters you are passing were in the method declaration. So if you are declaring three parameters here, then you have to pass exactly three values. If you are passing four parameters here, then at the time of method calling, you have to pass exactly four parameters. So the number of the argument and the value you pass should be same. So let's try to save this and let's try to execute this program. So I've already saved. After saving, we have to compile. This is how we compile. Yeah, it's compiled successfully. Now let's try to execute. So here we are able to print the two parameter values 10 and 5. Now just for your understanding, let me just remove this one of the value and try to execute. So it should give an error. After saving, always we have to compile. So it should give an error. The error says method m1 in the class state cannot be applied to the given type. m1. So here it is clearly given required int double. Found int, reason is actual, and a formal argument list differ in length. So it means that you have not passed the value here. It is 10.5. So you have to remember is any kind of project development in future, you have to remember is the number of the values passed here should be equal to the parameter you are declaring at the time of method declaration. So this is very important. So this is the example with parameter. So let's just keep it here. So we have done with example 1 and 2 with using parameter and without using parameter and with using parameter. Now example 3 is passing object the method. So passing the parameter as the object when you are declaring the method. So we'll see how we will pass an object into the method. So now for your information, passing of the primitive data types into the method usually don't do in real-time projects. So for your real-time projects, usually most of the programmers prefer to pass objects, not primitive data types. Real-time approach. Passing object in the method. So this is the example 3, and let's do it here. So let's just remove this. Remove this. So this example is passing object into the method as a parameter. So let's say we have class X and object X. And let's say we have class EMP and we have object E. And this method M1, and let's say we have another method void M2, and we are passing an object Y, and let's say student class is there, and we have object std. Now for your information, so this is this X, then EMP, Y, and students are the class name. And in real-time projects, these classes will be present in other directory or other subfolders. So what you have to do is you have to do import like if it is in com.gov.et stuff, you have to do uh, in this type. If you have declared those class in other directories and folders, you have to import. So for this example, I'm not going to show about this import. So this import will be covered when we are learning about the packages uh, in the next lesson. During the packages time, we are going to highlight on this import, how to import the classes to the current file. So for now, just for your understanding, let's declare the classes here. We have class X, we have class X, we have class EMP, then we have class Y, then we have class student. So so if you're not declaring the class here, then it will give an error. So just for example, we are for example an execution of the program properly, we are just declaring the classes here. So in real-time projects, these classes will be in other subdirectories and folders. Okay. So we have done declaring those class. Now let's try to print some of the objects inside the method. This is the method one. This is the method two. Let's try to print one of the value, not all. This is just for your example, it's just for your understanding. Let us print the value of X, and here let us print the value of Y object. Now we have done declaring, passing the object as a parameter in the method M1 and method M2. We have object Y and object STT, we have object X and object E. So this is how you will be doing in the real-time projects, like passing of the parameters as passing objects into the method as a parameter. Now let us call these two methods into the main method, because execution of the program always starts from the main method in Java. So we have two methods here. Both of the methods are instance methods, so therefore we are trying to access the instance to the static area. So we always have to do with the object. So we are creating object here. So this is how we create object. And we have object here, we have class here. So we have to create the object of the class x. Let's say x1. So let's give a different name, new x. Okay. We have EMP class. Let's create the object EMP. E is equal to new EMP. So let's try to print x. I mean, let's try to call the method M1. We are printing the value of x here, the object x. So let us call the method M1. So t dot M1. So as I told you, If there are two parameters, then exactly two values should be passed. If there is one parameter, then exactly one parameter should one value should be passed during the method calling. So therefore here we have two objects being passed. So therefore there should be two values to be passed. So here we are passing the values as object. So we have x1, and we have, let's say, let's give this e1 to not confuse. It's not it will work even if we give e and something. So let's just give an e1 here. So this is how we are passing the parameter when we are calling the method m1. So just you have to remember is the parameter and the value pass should be equal. So we have method m2. So we have object y, I mean class y. So we have to create the object y. Object y. So y. Let's say y1 is equal to new y. So we have class students. Let's create the student object. std1 equal to new student. Let's call method m2 t dot m2. We have two parameters being passed here. You see, are you seeing y is y and student std. So we have two parameters being passed here. So at the time of method calling, you have to pass the values. So we have y1 and we have std1. So here we are trying to pass the value x1. So we are trying to print from here we are trying to pass those two values to this method m1, x and e. So after that we are trying to execute this, and then we are printing the value x. That is, we are printing the value of the object. So when you are trying to print the object, it should give the output as the class name and the hash code. So let's try to execute this program. So this is how we are passing the object as a parameter into the method. So this is important. You have to know in the real-time project and all. So let's save this and let's try to execute this code. Yeah, it's compiled successfully. Java. Let's execute. So here we are able to print the objects. So when you are trying to print the object, if you're not assigning any value, and if you're trying to print the object, then it will print the class name at the rate, then some hash code will be printed. Same for the method m2. So this is how we are passing objects into the method. I hope you understood with the example 3. So passing object into the method. So this is the example 3. Let me keep it here. Now let's move on with example 4. Example 4 is so in the lesson 2, I have highlighted on the method signature. That is the void m1. If you're declaring method like this, then I will highlight here. This part is called method signature. The method name and two bracket. Till this, it is called method signature. For your understanding, I'm just highlighting this. So the example 4 is two method with the same not allowed in Java. Now, two methods with the same signature is not allowed in Java. So you will see this practically. No, I just don't want to save this. Let's just remove this. Same signature. Same two methods with the same signature is not allowed in Java. So I'm just going to show it here. Let's say we have class case. So we are trying to let's try to give two methods with the same signature. Let's say void M1. Let's just try to give two methods here. Void M2. I mean, we are giving the same signature, not M2. So here we have two methods with the same signature, that is void M1 and void M1. And we are trying to declare two methods with the same signature. So let's see what is the error is being printed when compile and execute. So let's just create object here. And now you have to understand why I'm creating the object here. E.M1. We are trying to call this M1 method. This is the method signature. We are trying to declare two methods with the same signature. So let's save this and let's try to execute. It's just the basic of the Java. So it should give an error. So it says method M1 is already defined in the class test void M1. So it means that declaring two methods with the same signature is not allowed in Java. So just remember this. So let's just copy this and paste it here. Now, coming next, let's move into example. For example 5. Yeah. Now, example 5 is now in Java. In Java, return types are return types are return types are mandatory. In Java, return types are mandatory. So with the help of example, let's check this whether return types are mandatory or not. Let's just remove this. Just remove this. Just for example. Return types are mandatory in Java. So let's try to declare one method here. Let's say we have method M1. Let's say M1. So this, just for example, we are using M1. So here we're trying to print return type testing. So we are trying to declare the method without the return type. So let's just try to create one object here. T dot M1. So we have declared one method without return type, and we are trying to call this method. So we are going to check whether this is possible or not in Java. So I've saved the application. Now I have to execute. I have to compile first. So the error message says that invalid method declaration, return type required. So therefore, in Java, return type is mandatory. So therefore, when you are declaring the method, you have to uh, declare the return type. So just this just a simple example. Return types are mandatory in Java methods. So this is example 5. So moving coming next, we have example 6. Example 6. Inner methods. Inner methods are not allowed in Java. In Java, inner class is allowed, but inner methods are not allowed. So how it is, we are going to show with the example. Inner methods are not allowed in Java. Inner methods are not allowed in Java. We have class test. We are trying to, let's declare a method here. Return type is mandatory. Let's say void M1. So let's say we have another method. Let me just remove this and see. This is method M1. We have void M2. Let's declare another method, void M2. Return type is mandatory in Java. Methods. Let's try to print system dot method 2. Okay. Now here we are trying to call method M1. So let's call method M2. So for just showing, I will execute this. Compile successfully. Sorry. Let's try to execute. So here, method 1 and method 2 is being printed. So this example is regarding inner methods not allowed in Java. So let's try to just let's try to remove this, and let's try to create one inner method here, void M2 here. Let's try to print this, print something here. This is inner method 2. So let's try to call this method m1 here t.m1. Let's try to execute. So this should give an error. So illegal start of expression. So it means inner method is not allowed in Java. Here it means that illegal start of expression. So therefore you have to know is that inner methods are not allowed in Java. So let's just try to copy it here for the reference. Now coming next, the next example method example program is example 7. Example 7 is regarding the method calling. The execution of the method completes only when all the statements are executed. The execution of the method completes only when all the statements are executed. So just show the example how it is. So let's just remove this and give an error if you are declaring inner method. So let's say we have method m1. So let's declare another method void m2. So here for just for example, I'm using return type as only void and that returns nothing. So I'm going to talk on this return type 5 to 6 cases after this example. We have method m2 here. So let's try to print something inside method m2. I copied the wrong place. So let me copy here. So let's say we are printing m2 and let's declare another method void m3, method m3, and we're trying to print something here, and let's say this is method 3. Now so this example is regarding the execution of the statement and the method completion. Execution of the statement. Execution of the method completes only when all the statements are completed. Okay, so let me just call this method m1. We have 3 methods. That is method m1, method m2, method m3. So therefore, I'm going to call only method m1. So let's try to create one object. Why we are creating object here? I hope you know why we are creating object here. And we are trying to call the method m1. So we'll just save the application and let us compile and execute. So compile successfully. Now let's execute this program. This is how we execute the program. So this is the method 1. So if you look at here, we are calling only method m1. So as I have told you, so main method is, JVM is responsible for executing only the main method. Not to execute other method outside the main method, you have to call those methods inside the main method for execution. So currently we are calling only M1, so therefore only these statements is being printed. So these are called statements. So these three are the statements inside the Java. So this is the example regarding the completion of the execution of the method statements. So let's try to just call method M2 here. We are calling the M2 here. This is how we are calling the method inside the method. So we are calling this method to method M1. So here in the main method, we are calling the method M1. So the previous example and this example, the execution is different because as I have told you that execution of the method completes only when all the statements are being executed. So therefore, for this, as soon as the method is called, it will go here, then it will execute this. First, it should execute the method M2. After execution of the method M2, then only this will be executed. So what I mean to say is that the method completion, execution of the method completes only when all of these statements, these are the called statements. We have two statements here, M2 method calling, and then we are printing something here. So execution of the method completes only. So I mean, the execution of the method M1 completes only when all these statements are being executed. So let's save this and let's try to check the output. It's clear. Let's try to compile. This is how we compile the Java program. Then let's try to execute. Plus here you have noticed that method, this is method 2 is being printed. So if you look at here, as soon as you are calling method M1, it is not executing this. It should go in sequentially. So first, it should execute this statement. So as soon as it reaches here, it will call method M2, and then it should execute this. Then only it will execute this statement and the method execution completes. Okay. Now, if you're trying to call method M3 here, a similar process happens. So therefore, let's try to save it. We are calling method M3 in the method M1. So let's just try to clear this. This is how we compile the Java program. And we have compiled successfully. Now let's try to execute. So that's all with this example. I hope you have understood what I'm trying to say. So completion of the execution method, completion of the method completes only when all these statements are being completed, executing. Okay. That's all with the example 7. Let's just copy it and let's paste it here. Now, coming next, we have example 8. Now, exam number 8. Now, if a Java file contains both the instance and the local variables inside the method, then how you have to uh, program when there is both instance and static. So just going to write if both instance and if both instance and local variable names are same in the method, we have to use this keyword. So in the lesson one, we have discussed about the keywords in Java. We have 50 keywords in Java, and we have three constants: true, false, and null. So I hope you remembering those keywords. So here uh, we are going to assess the instance and local variables using this. So you will understand when I do the practical here. Using this keyword for instance variable access. So let's just remove these methods. It's not required right now. Now let's try to declare two variables here, two instance variables, inst and I mean int a. Int a equal to, let's say, int x equal to 100 and int y equal to 200. Let's say 200. So these two variables are, we have learned in the lesson 2, these two variables are instance. These two variables are the instance variables. Okay. Now we are going to declare one instance method here. Let's say void. Let's try to do one operation, not just m1. Let's try to do addition of these two variables. Int a, I mean 8, and let's try to add this x. And let's say we have two parameters here. Let's say int x and int y. So for your information, here we have int x and int y, and also here we have int x and int y is equal to 200. So it's okay to declare the same variables, because this is the instance variable and this is the local variable, so it will not give an error in Java if you do this way. So this just for your information. So this example is I'm just going to show you how you are going to access the instance variables inside the local inside the method inside the method. To assist this instance variable inside the method, if there is a same variable name, that is instance, and the local variable name, if there is the same variable name, that is here we have two instance variables, this x and y, and we have two local variables. The variables which are declared inside the method as a parameter are local variables. So you have to remember this. These are local. Is considered local variables. Okay. So let's try to add these two x and add these x and y. SYSTM system dot auto RNTLN. Let's try to x plus y. Okay. So we have declared one method here. The method name is 8. So let's try to call this method in the main method. Let's create one object here, test object. So I hope you're knowing why I'm creating object here. st. So let's call this add method. So this is how we call method. So here we have passed two parameters in the method. So we have to pass two values. So let's say was 10 and 30. So just guess the output for this program. So just you guess it. So the program execution starts from here, main method. It will create the object. Then memory allocation of this will take place as soon as the object is created. Then we are trying to call the method 8 here. This method we are trying to call into the main method. Okay. Now just guess what is the output for this. So whether it will be 300 or whether it will be 30. Now let's try to see the output. So just check the one you have guessed is correct or not, because the program will not tell lie, no? That's why. So let's try to uh, mm, compile this program, Java test Java. So it's compiled successfully. Now let's try to execute Java test. So what's the, oh, sorry, yeah, it should be 40, 30, I've given 30, I thought I've given 20 here. So it's printing 40. So why it's not printing 300 is the question you have to ask. So some of you might be thinking, in your case, you might be thinking it should print 300, but it's now printing 40. The reason is that when you're calling the method and when you are assigning the value, it will directly, the preference is always to the local variable, that is inside the parameter. These values will be given here, and then the preference to do this statement or to execute this statement, always preference will be given to the local variables. So that's why it is printing 40. Now how you will, so the main reason of, and the main reason behind putting this example is how you will access those two instance variables into the method if there is same name, that is the same parameter name x and y. So for this we are using this keyword. So how you really use this? Just let's try to copy Control C. So just you have to put this dot, and you have to put this. So there is another thing called super and this. So what is, for this example we are using this. So what this keyword do is that this keyword is used to represent the class current class object. So this is the current class and it is representing this current class variables here. So if you are using super here, then it should be referring to the parent class. So this is a class and there will be a parent class for this test. So I'm going to talk on this parent class because this is a test class and the parent class for this test class is an object. So this out of scope for this method lesson. So I'm going to cover the uh, parent class and all those things in the coming lessons. Which me. So we are, so this is used to represent the class current class object. So here we are doing this x and y. So just guess the output. I hope you are understanding. Let's try to Java. We have compiled successfully. Now let's try to execute. So here, so that's how we are trying to access the instance to the method if there is same variable name, that is the variable name of the instance and the local variable same, then this is how you are accessing those instance variables inside the method with this keyword. So using this keyword from instance variable access, okay. So that's all with the example 8. Control C. Let's just try to copy this just for reference. Now coming up next, move on with example 9. And this, I think this is the last example regarding this Java, and I'm going to talk on return type 5 to 6 cases about the return type. So for this example 9, I'm just going to show you that inside the static method, this keyword is not allowed. So in the previous example, example 8, we are able to use this keyword because this is the instance method. So if you're not declaring any modifier in front of this return type, then this method is then this method is known as instance method. So if you're declaring the modifier in front of this return type, then this is the static method. So this is just for your information. And this I have already highlighted in lesson 02. So now example, this is example 9. Inside the static method, is keyword is not allowed. So let's check practically what are the error it will throw if we try to use this keyword inside the static method. Just let's try to put static here. Use this keyword is not allowed, inside the static method. We have class test, then we have two instance variables. Then let's just try to give this as static. So just put static in front of the return type to be this method as a static method. Let's try to execute this. So here, this example is this keyword is not allowed inside the static method, and here this is a static method that is static void add one. We are trying to pass some argument x and y, and we are trying to use this keyword inside the static method. So therefore, static method is not allowed in Java. So let's see whether it is true or false with the example. I forgot to save this. We have to save. After saving, always we have to compile. Java C Java. You should give error. So if you read the error message, it's clearly given that non-static variable, these cannot be referenced from a static constant. So this is the error. So we can't use this keyword inside the static method. The point here is never try to use this keyword inside a static method. These things you have to remember when you're doing like some development of the project and all in the future. So you have to remember these points, because if you don't understand these things, then you will face difficulty in development of your applications. So I think it is the last example with the method. So I think understanding these examples clearly, I think is more than enough for the methods example to do problem or do anything, any development of any kind of application and all. So just go through this example once at home. I hope you will understand. So Control C. Control V. No, not copied. Control C. So I think this is the last example, example 9. So just for revision, let's say without using the perimeter here, and we have done with using perimeter, then passing object in the method. This is the real-time approach. In the development project, you will pass these parameters as object, not as primitive data types. So only few cases you will be giving the parameter as a primitive data types like inflow, travel, and all those things. Most of the time, you will be dealing with the objects. So this is just the basic of how you will be passing the object into the method. We have also covered two methods with the same signature is not allowed. So as I've told you, this part, the highlighted one, this yellow and this blue one, this highlighted part is called method signature. The method name and the two bracket is called method signature. And in Java, uh, two method with same signature is not allowed. So it will give an error. So therefore, method signature must be same. But for information, if there is like this in A, so this is also not valid because we have same method name and the signature is same. So we should not be using same method in your project. Okay. So we have number 5. In Java, return types are mandatory. So after this, we will take some break and then I will start with 5 to 6 cases with this return type. I've not talked much. I've just used this void in this example. So in the next cases, I will use return types like primitive return types, the non-primitives, and all. I'll cover. So in Java, return types are mandatory. We can't do anything. If you are not declaring return type, then it will give an error. So therefore, return type is mandatory in Java. So 6, inner methods are not allowed in Java. So never try to use inner method. Never try to declare methods inside the method. And we have number 7, the execution of method completes only when all the statements are being executed. So I've shown an example here how it's getting executed and how the method is getting completed after execution of all the statements. Okay. Now we have example 8. If both instance and local variable have the same name in the method, then we have to use this keyword to access the instance variables. So what are instance variables? All those things we have to understand. Okay. So number 9, we have inside the static method, this keyword is not allowed. So here we are declaring one static method and we are trying to we are trying to use this, which is not valid. So never try to use this keyword inside the static method. So static is always linked with that of the class. And this is something to do with the object, and it always deals with the object. So therefore, we are not allowed to use this inside the static. So static is always linked with the class loading. So I think so that's all with the example programs. So maybe we can take short break. Hello, hello.
Oh,
We can take short break now.
yes, we can take.
Okay, we will resume after 50 minutes. 50 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Welcome back to the lesson. So here we will discuss a few cases regarding the Java return types. I mean method return types, not Java return types, method return types. So the first case is case one. So I'm just going to explain this. I have a few notes here. Case one is void returns nothing. I've used in the earlier examples the programs void. So void means it returns nothing. So every time the method gets executed, then it should return something. But if you are declaring the method as return type as void, then it will not return anything. So void returns nothing. This is the case one regarding the return type. Now the case two is return type can be primitive, class, and array type, and it can be enum type. So here we have given the example. So here it is void. Now here we have a different return type, that is primitive return type int. So if you are declaring, like if you have a class, then the data type can be class. If you're declaring class test, then it can be as test m1, like this, test m1. It will be that kind. So if you're declaring the return type as the class. So return type can be also array, and it can be also in the form of enum and all. So this is the primitive return type int m1. Then inside the method there will be a number of statements, n number of statements, and at the end we have to return the value. So if you are declaring the return type other than void, then return, it should return a value. This return is mandatory. So you have to, at the end of the method statement, you have to return the value like this, return 10. So it will be, you will understand with the full notes cases. So this means a return type can be primitive, class type, and it can be array or enum. So and case three is inside the method return statement must be the last statement. So what it I mean to say is that so this return 10, return any kind of value. It can be an object, it can be an enum or array. This return type should be the last statement. So it's saying this is invalid. Return type must be the last statement. So this is not valid. So this is invalid. Returning should be here actually. At this point, this return 10 should be here at the end of the statement. So the reason is that written here. So the reason is that if you're applying for driving lessons, then first you have to process those ID proofs, and only after the ID proofs, they're going to provide you the license. So same applies to the Java as I've written here. So only after the processing of your ID proofs, then they are going to give the license if you're applying for the driving license. So without giving any ID proofs and without going any process, directly you will not get a driving license. So therefore, so returning of the value or getting something should be at the end. So therefore, return type, you have to return the value only at the end of the method statement. Okay. So just trying to say that this is invalid. So it should be here, return 10. If you're returning the primitive data type, you have to return integer value. If it is int, then you have to return int. If it is object, then you have to return object like e, object, obj. If you're creating object t, then you have to return object t at the end of the statement. So this is the case 3. Now uh, case 4 is method is able to return the value, but holding the value is optional. So let's see this program. So we have class test, then we are declaring one method, and we have method return type as int. So we are trying to return 10. The return type is 10. So if you are declaring this return type as void, then this is not required. So if you're declaring the return type other than void, like if you're declaring in, float, other primitive, and also like a class type, enum type, array type, then you have to return. So here we have declared int return type, and therefore it should return an integer value. So int m1 and it's returning 10. So you have the main method here. So we are creating object. So you know why we are creating the object. So we are trying to call the m1 method here. Mm, So here we can see that when we are calling the m1 method, so this is the instance method. So we are calling the instance method to the static area. We have to always do it from object reference. So uh, if you are calling the method this type t.m1, this means it is not holding the value. So if you are doing this way, like if you are returning the integer value, here we are giving the return type as integer. So if you are trying to return the value as integer, then the example of holding the value is this way. So you have to declare the data type, then you have to give the variable name, then you have to hold this return type t.m1. So what this will return is 10. System.out print, then it will print e means this is how we hold the value. So this is just variable name. So it means the method is able to return the value, but holding the value is optional. So, but in the project level, it is always recommended to hold the value, because you have to check the status of your application. So therefore, this is the way of holding the value when you are returning something like primitive data, primitive and all. So this is case 4. I hope you are understanding what I'm trying to say. Now, in line with this case 4, we have one example here. We have example method versus return type, primitive return types. Method versus return type. We are looking at primitive return types. So here it is same. You have to just give the return type as int m1. Then we are trying to print this. Then it is returning 10. We have another primitive return type float with method m2. It's just example primitive how we are using return type as a primitive. Then we have one static variable static method here, char char return type in m3. We are trying to print this in char means we are returning a a character. So since return type is char, we are returning a. Now in the main method, we are trying to call the method m1, m2, and m3. So M1 and M2 is instance method, so therefore always object. Should be called with the help of object. So here we are trying to hold the value in the X. We are trying to call this M1. So if we have a int return type, so we are trying to hold the return type in the form of X. We are trying to hold this value 10, return type 10 to X, and then we are calling the method. So that's how this is how we are using primitive return types. This is just the example. Is same for other statements. Then example 2 is method versus returning the object. Now here we are returning the primitive data types. Now how we are going to return the objects? So there, if there is, so here we have the example for class return type, create object of the class, return the reference object. So it is saying that if you have a method with a class return type, so if we say an emp is a class, then we have a return type emp and we have a method m1. So before returning, we have to create an object, then we have to return e. So here we are creating the object of the employee emp, and then we are returning the e. So that's how we return the object. If you are declaring the return type for the method as class. So this approach, so The difference between this approach and this approach is here we are using the primitive data types, whereas here we are using the object. So in project level, always remember that you have to use and you have to follow this. You have to use the object return types, the class return types. This is the object level. This is project level. If you are developing some project in future, you will see your codes written in this way, right? Giving the non-primitive data types. So primitive data types are those data types like int, float, and all. So non-primitive data types are class, interface, array, enum, and all. Those are the non-primitive data types. And in project level, always you will be using these non-primitive data types. So this is just the basic I'm teaching you here. This is how we are going to do. So if you're having an object return type, I mean class, then it should return an object. First, you have to create the object, then you can return the object reference. Here, object reference is E. So here it is written used in project level, and it is important. So here, how we are using the return types in the form of object. Here we have class EMP, class X, then we have class text. Now how we are giving the return type of the class EMP and all is similar to this example. Now example 3 is two approaches to return the current class object. So see here we have class test, then we are trying to declare one method with the class test return type. So we're trying to print M1, then we are trying to, so always this is a class return type, so you have to create object and you have to access this, and we have to return the object reference, return T. This is the first approach of returning the current class object. Now another approach is we are declaring class test2 M2, then we are trying to print, then return this. This method M1 and this method M2 is the two ways to return the current class object. Okay. And you can use either return T or you can use this. You can just create object and then you can return T, or else you can just return this. It will return the object T. Now, three cases with return type in method. Return types in method. Three cases with return types in method. We have this example and this is case one. So we have class test. Int a is equal to 100. This is the instance variable. We are here. We just wanted to look at the cases with return types in method. The case one is if you are declaring class test, then if you declare one instance variable, then one local variable. This is a static method with one parameter. This int a is a local variable, so we are trying to print M1 method, then return a. So this is the case one, how we try to return return the int value. Now the case two is now case two is, so just declared class test, then we can just without here we are using without the parameter here. So int a is equal to 100. This is the instance variable. Then we're trying to declare one method with integer return type, and we are trying to return the value a. We are trying to return this value here. So this is case two. is similar to what I have done in the programs. I hope you're understanding this. So you can try executing this code in your system, so you will understand in a better way. Now case 6, case 3 is uh, these examples are very similar. So just we are trying to here we are trying to use here the third case is we are trying to use this keyword. So this I have shown you using of this I have shown you in the previous example. So how we are using this keyword when we are trying to uh, return the value. So here we are trying to declare one class, then we are trying to declare one instance variable, then we are creating one method with a we are trying to create a local variable and instance variable. Now here we are giving the return type as int. Now we are trying to do system.out print. So if you want to uh, return this local variable, you just do without using this. Now if you want to return the instance, so what is instance variable or no, you already know. So how you're going to assist those instance variable is this by using this keyword. So if you return with return this dot a, then it will return the instance variable. If you're not using this, then it should return this a, the local variable. So I think that's all with the return type in method. You can go through this. So I'm also going to share this note in the mail. I've given the mail address before in the lesson 2 and lesson 1. So you just mail me there. I will just share these notes and the presentation. So I think that's all with today's lesson. And so see you in the next lesson, that is lesson 04. Thank you.